when I think of how the world works in circles. So I need to share that a little anyway. As Pastor Mark said, I am a child of this congregation. In 1959, I was born, and my parents belonged here at St. John's. And so I was baptized here in early 1960. I was telling Ann, I think I need to find your baptismal records because I've never actually seen that. Our time here did not stay but a couple of years because during that time frame, the synod we had a new church down the road called Richfield Lutheran Church, and they were looking for what they called seed families at the time. And my parents were very excited, although it was a conflict to leave St. John's when my mother had done education, Christian ed. My dad was active on the property committee, on the council, ushering, etc. And this had been their home. But when the synod calls, you tend to follow. And so they were selected to be a seed family for this new big church down the road on 60th and Nicollet. So baptized here, hung out here until I think I could walk. And then we headed on down to Richfield Lutheran, which is where my family stayed until my parents both passed away. But again, to come back here after all these years, and literally my office looks on your sanctuary. So every day I'm kind of reminded of my spiritual roots and how life can move you all around the place. And now here I am talking with you. So very excited. I was a miller, 1977 miller. So it's really fun to watch the kids walk up and down because they're so lucky they have like free lunch hour. And so they come through the parking lots, and as I drive down the streets, it's so-and-so's house and so-and-so's house. And so it really is like coming home working here. My life brought me back here. At the time I was at Richfield Lutheran, pandemic happened. And literally I remember it was a mid-March morning in 1920. I happened to be preaching that day. We had Sunday school going on, our second contemporary service. We had a big theater program there for 25 years. I was artistic director there. We had a rehearsal going on in the afternoon for Aladdin. Everything was great. And we started getting these texts that things were shutting down. So I literally went on Sunday. I also subbed in Bloomington schools. I had 4 jobs on Sunday morning. And by Sunday afternoon, nobody knew what was coming next. And we've all lived through that. During that time, God works in mysterious ways. And I always tell people some days it's like neon coming down, and other days it's rather subtle. And I had known about trust because when my mother passed away in 2013, we had used their estate sale services. So I was familiar with the name, but not much more. And kind of on a whim, I had gotten an email from the then executive director who said, I saw your name, I saw this about trust. I feel like I need to know more about it. So now that I look back on it, I think God was like gently pushing me because my job at Richfield Lutheran had really changed. And I didn't know where it was leading me. So when we met with Toya, the former executive director, she turned and looked at me as she left Richfield Lutheran and she goes, "Someday you're going to work for Trust." And I was like, okay. And time went by, and then as things opened back up, I became active on their board of directors representing Richfield Lutheran. Got to know the place, and I was like, oh, I know this building. I think this is where we used to go when we wanted to not be seen at Washburn in the middle of the day, right outside this alley somewhere. So anyway, I digress. But I started working with congregations and community life. And then through some different things, the executive director, the direction of trust, it was not going well, and I'll just leave it at that. We didn't know if we were going to be existing or figuring out what to do with our space. And so we decided to regroup, rebrand, and refocus on what we were really meant to do. And our role is to be community with the community. As Pastor Mark said, Trust, just to give you a little history, they actually started in 1970. And there was a big concern among congregations that they were being broken up by this little freeway system called 35W. And 8 congregations, many of them who are still part of our base, came together and said, how are we going to continue to be community? So without giving you a long history from 1970, we ebbed and we flowed and we had all kinds of programs, all kinds of youth groups. But when I started, we had found kind of our natural existence to be in community with the community. We have programs which help sustain older adults to continue living independently in their homes. So our programs include Meals on Wheels, transportation assist services, and chore home services, which I'll talk each about those. One of the things I noticed was lacking was community initiative, building community together, and especially coming out of pandemic. We didn't have the crystal ball. What we had was broken. We didn't know how people were going to come back together. What we did know is that people need community. They need a place to belong. They need a place that will help them with isolation and loneliness. Working with Minneapolis Public Health, one of the things we learned is we did really good on isolating people, and we never took into account what that was going to mean. I remember talking to one of my elders in the congregation during early, probably 6 months into pandemic, and what she said resonates me, and it still does today. She said, you know, Mary Beth, I don't know what's worse, dying of pandemic or dying of loneliness. And it really has lived in my heart since then is how do we build community? How do we strengthen our community? So we always have a core of congregations. We now have 18 congregations in the South Metro area that participate with us. Many congregations like yours here of all denominational blend. And we also realize that we can't just rely on our congregations to be our word of mouth in our community. We have to get our community involved so that what we do together can also help support our congregations and people like you. So I started at the job, and one of the things I first did, which was kind of an eye-opener for me, is I started calling all the congregations. I said, hi, I'm Mary Beth with Trust Incorporated, and literally they would say, who? What? And I thought, boy, I got my work cut out for me. So we've worked these last 3 years to strengthen our programs and to develop many initiatives. And our initiatives really are what is connecting us to the bigger community at large. The reality is we've got a very strong sense of parishioners who are part of our client base, but we have an even bigger presence of people who are unchurched. And so what do? We continue to provide, and I always tell people, live out what it means to be the hands and feet of Christ in the world, because that's where I will always lead from. That is who I am. For people who don't know faith, or have a lot of different issues with faith, we continue to serve them as well. And my excitement, or as I say, the cherry on top of the sundae, is when one of them will say to me, do you know of a church or a community of faith I can belong to? And I'm like, let me give you some ideas, starting right here in our backyard. So it's been really exciting to continue to build this program. When Pastor Mark asked me to come, I was going to do this big presentation and tell you about it, but I really think the bigger thing we can do is to share the stories. And so I just have a couple to share with you, and then I have some time for your questions. So I'm going to kind of go through my program services. Meals on Wheels is one of our biggest services. We have 110 clients that we give either daily hot meals, and new in the last few years since the pandemic is frozen weekly meals, which I just jump for joy because so many of our clients, it's like, well, I'm not sure that I can be home every day at noon. So instead of making them come to the program service, we now provide program services that fit with our clients' needs. And so that is a big part. We have a volunteer base of 70 drivers. So if anyone's interested about volunteering to be drivers, that's one of our driving programs. And is anybody here a Meals on Wheels driver? Well, it's a joy. And it's a joy that spans generations. When I was young, it was just starting out and my mother was actively involved. And then when I think she was only 90, I think it was 90, either 90 or 92, I used to start driving with her. So I thought that would be a good thing to do. And she was like, oh, no, I've got this. But you can come along if you want. And so my job was to put the meals together, and she'd take them up to the door, and she had her whole routine. And I realized she was building relationships. These people were her people. And when it was Richfield Lutheran's turn to drive, this was her chance to catch up with these people. So in 1993, I was blessed with my daughter, my only. And as she got to be 2 and 3 years old, it was really fun. It was like, Molly, find the A that goes with this bag and the B that goes with that, and here's the numbers. And she'd be there putting them together, and pretty soon she and my mom, Grandma, would be toddling up the doors together. And now my daughter is 32, and one of her gifts that she gives back to the community is through Meals on Wheels. So it is truly, I think, a thing that builds families together and spans the generations. Given everything going on in our world these days, there was a lot of concern that Meals on Wheels would cease to exist. And I just want to share everybody, if you'll tell people that you know, at this point in time, we are solid, our organization is solid, and we will continue to do Meals on Wheels probably until our last breath. We have no fear at this time of losing money. One of the things that may happen is the Metropolitan Meals on Wheels, which is our overarching agency, due to all the problems with the Feeding Our Future fiasco that you've probably all heard about this week. They want to break up that big agency and bring it down into individuals. For some, that will be a problem. For us, it will not. We are already licensed for title funding and can help people. We have our location at Judson Baptist Church. We could simply, it would be a change of focus, but our meals would not be affected. We also have generous donations throughout the year. No one, regardless of age, is turned away for a meal through the Trust Meals on Wheels program. So I'm really pleased about that. That's our one program. Transportation Assist is one of our big programs as well. It started when I started here. 12 people were getting rides to the grocery store, to the pharmacy, and occasionally any other big box or post office place they needed to go. We are now currently at 82 people, and every week we get 2 or 3 more people who have decided they need our transportation assist. I love the fact that this program, it brings people together, it builds the relationships, and most of my drivers are what I call my young retireds. So it's really fun to hear 85 and 90-year-olds refer to my 75-year-olds as son or sonny. I love that. But the beauty of it is young retireds giving back to others in their community, building relationships. They do get a little fussy if their regular driver can't pick them up. And some days we can't provide that. We have to give them a different driver. What it does is it reminds me how the comfort and the trust, no pun intended, what it takes for someone who has been an independent driver, for whatever reason, they can't drive, they choose not to, several who are losing their eyesight or they have mobility issues, you have to put your trust in someone. And many of them have found out there is a big nightmare with Metro Mobility. They get dropped off. Sometimes it's 2 hours before their appointment. Sometimes they don't make their appointment. But there's a big fear of not being picked up. And I try and put myself in those shoes. and think about being at a grocery store or at a doctor appointment and no one picks you up. So our rides are mostly single rides. Sometimes we'll double up depending on if we're at a facility. We serve many of the senior living facilities in South Minneapolis. And I said, I wish I had, in my head, I see the image from Geico, the little pig out the window with the pinwheel going, whee! Well, that's what I kind of envision when I think of the four riders together with our driver going to Cub Foods, or going here, or going to the Target. I always love that. So we do a lot of work like that that brings people together. We have been blessed. The city of Minneapolis has given us funding to help senior transportation. So I'm very pleased with our partnership with the city of Minneapolis. We're talking, last year was $25,000, this year was $12,500, because the city believes they're having a lot of budget problems. But even with that, we can provide a new service, which is to appointments for medical needs. So we won't take you to the hospital or the urgent care, but many older adults have physical therapy or mental health therapy that we know the routine times. And it's a perfect blend for us. Or to the clinic, or to get labs, or to go to the dentist. So our appointments are an hour and a half long. That gives us time to pick you up, take you shopping for 45 minutes, get you back to your home. We will help you get your groceries or your purchases in the house. Last year, a story I have to that is someone wanted to do a container garden. They used to have a big garden, can't do that anymore. But we were able to go with them over to Menards. They got the big long containers for their patio and a 40-pound bag of dirt. And unless you can't lift a 40-pound bag of dirt, you don't realize how much that weight is. So then we were blessed, our driver was getting fresh tomatoes the rest of the summer once they ripened. And you know, it's those type of things that without these services, our drivers are all trained to do arm assist. They will help with people, they will help with your mobility equipment, walkers, canes, etc. And they're always within close range, usually in a parking lot. Most of our clients now have their own phones, so we can converse back and forth, or remind them that your 45 minutes was up 15 minutes ago. But again, the joy that it brings for people to have a reliable, a safe, and a trusted transportation is really important. The last piece is our chore home services. And again, we provide not only housekeeping needs, but we will do your yard maintenance and your snow maintenance. Now these last 2 years, we haven't had to do a lot of snow maintenance. But we do work with over 80 clients for the winter, and we will probably have as many for the summer, just for yard services. And then we have about another 70 clients that may be part of the same group or different, who just do light housekeeping. And again, we are, through the state of Minnesota, we take title funding and allow people to utilize their support monies to help with house cleaning, organizing, things like that that help people out a lot. So our last piece is our estate sales piece. And that is something we do both. Hi, how are ya? Estate sales and downsizing sales, where we will help people as they're moving from their home to a facility. We will organize an estate sale for them, see that everything is sold. They get half of the purchases or the profits, and then the other 1,500 comes back to trust. We have one staff person, and everyone else is a volunteer. What I love about this service, again, I've used it for my mom, is her treasures were still treasures in someone else's eyes. And makes me teary even after this one. How much that means to know that we couldn't keep everything, but those things that were sold as though they were someone's treasure. And if they weren't sold, they have all kinds of repurposing, which means so much to me. The idea of a giant dump truck or a dumpster out in the driveway just gave me so much anxiety. So they repurpose books, they repurpose furniture. So as one person's life closes down, other people's lives can start. So we do a lot of work with Lutheran Social Service for the, I think it's called Start a Home program. We do furniture, household goods, etc. So again, it's a great way to work and help someone else. We do medical equipment. That's in the basement of the house across the parking lot. So people who need, for example, we had someone call the other day, my in-laws are coming for a week, I need a shower chair, and I need an extra walker. And I'm like, sure, we have it in our basement. So we pick it up, people use it, they either bring it back to us. If they don't, we ask them to repurpose it on to someone else. So a lot of different things happening at Trust. Most importantly, we continue to be community with the community. I have to speak a little bit about our initiatives. I gave you a little brochure. We're very excited today, actually. If you're not doing anything at 4 o'clock, one of our partner churches, Diamond Lake Lutheran, one of our first initiatives we did was Sunday supper. And the reason being is for many who are living independently, their families come over the weekend, they go to church in the morning, and then the rest of Sunday can be really lonely. And so we decided that Sunday supper was a great way to bring people together. We have an hour of entertainment of some sort today. It's our St. Patrick's Day party. Would love to see you over there. The Blarney Stones are playing, so you'll probably see the place a rockin' in green at 4 o'clock today. Then at 5 o'clock, we do a community meal. We sit at round tables like this, and we provide a hot meal for today, and we always cook enough for a meal for another day. Because we know many of our seniors who come, they may utilize, for example, loaves and fishes services during the week, but it's a long time between Sunday dinner and Monday dinner. So we always have enough to take home until it's gone. And I really feel it's by the grace of God that we do this work. We started with a small grant that Trust gave to the Sunday supper as such. And since that grant initially, we have never had to put more money into it. The donations people give to that program continue to sustain it month after month. We're now almost 4 years into that program. We're excited for you. Thank you. Thank you. We do a conversation cafe. If you're ever around the second Wednesday of each month at Trust, you'll probably hear all the chitter chatter coming out the windows. We have 8 to 10 of our, mostly, I want to say they're 80 or 85 plus. We bring them to our location. They do our newsletter, which I have several over there, that are monthly. They fold them, they label, they seal them, they mail them. So in addition to coming together and having treats and wellness conversations with our nurse, they also volunteer to give back to Trust. So it's a wonderful thing we're doing. We have so many people excited about this that we're starting Conversation Cafe 2. And so we're going to be doing welcome packages for those of you. I date myself when I say a welcome wagon package, but that's what we want to do with our new clients. So they know if you come in one thing, you have all these other things. So we have several initiatives that are in that brochure. We're starting a cribbage club. We're going to have a group here that we're hoping to do a conversation group for all ages, kind of just a check-in group with one of our staff who is a psychologist, who just to come together, because I think right now in this world, sometimes you need to come together and just sit and talk with someone else and say, I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, how about you? In a safe place, a safe way. And I believe we're going to use the lounge area. This is going to be coming up. We don't have all the details yet on that. I'm still waiting for our staff person's information. But I think that's also important. It's not just for older adults. Our initiatives are for all ages. We're starting a chair yoga class. We have certified people on our staff to do chair yoga. I want to say I'm not certified in cribbage, but boy, do I love it. So if you're around on Thursday afternoons, one of our partner churches, you'll see it in this brochure. Last thing is we do try and always partner with our city leaders. And I know in a few weeks you're going to have Emily Koski here, our Ward 11 representative. But we also partner with Ward 8 and Ward 12 next Wednesday. In this brochure, it's talking about we are having a coffee and conversation. Last fall, we do a senior fair in the fall, and I said to the reps, you know guys, talking to seniors once a year is probably not to your best advantage. And they all said, oh, well, we have online groups. And I looked at them and said, probably not to your best advantage. Because so many of our older adults, they have limited online presence. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I can figure out Zoom or Teams or whatever there is. But it's not the same as having face-to-face conversation. So we hope you'll come, take a look at what we do. The brochure is kind of trust in a nutshell. The buzz, as we call it, is what's happening in the next month or two. We partner with neighborhood associations. Kingfield is actually doing the cribbage group. So I had to kind of acquiesce on that one because they wanted it in the Kingfield neighborhood. We were set to do it here at St. John's. But, I'm also about borders is not what define us. So maybe we start over there for the spring. In the summer, we might go to the park. In the fall, we might be here. But I hope many of you, even if it's not here at St. John's, that you will come and be a part of Trust. If you'd like to volunteer, I'd love to talk with you. We have a variety of options for you.